Hey friend, if you're like me, then you love a free gift. And today I want to give you something special for being a loyal listener of the podcast, and that's Get It Made, a guide on how to find a manufacturer for your fashion brand. This guide has tips and tricks on how to find your next manufacturer so that you can bring your dreams of starting your own fashion brand into fruition. All you need to do is type in makegoodfashion.com/getitmade or visit the show notes for the link. Hey guys, I am so excited about my interview today with Amrita Thadani, founder of Neococo. Neococo is a social impact fashion company that empowers refugee women through community, femininity, and hand embroidery. Before Neococo, Amrita graduated from the Parson School of Design, the new school, and worked as a fashion stylist for 15 years. Neococo has been featured in all kinds of publications like Los Angeles Times, Refinery 29, and most recently, NBC California Live. I love what Amrita does so much and how she's able to provide jobs for these refugee women and everything that she does. And I believe that you're going to learn so much from her story. And hopefully it empowers you to make change through the things you create too. So let's get into the interview with Amrita Thadani. Hi, Amrita. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I so appreciate you.
Hey, Jasmine. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yes. Okay, so it's so funny because I feel like we've known each other for a couple years now, but I've
Yeah.
never heard the story of how you started your brand. So I'm really interested in knowing, how did this start? Like, take me from the beginning, how you got started, your background, all of that.
So I grew up in India, and I moved to the United States in 2008. That was the time I got married and I moved here with my husband. I started studying at Parsons at the time, the School of Design in New York. But while I was in India, I was working as a costume designer on films, traveling a lot for work, and I grew up learning all these different techniques in hand embroidery, being exposed to weavers and nonprofit organizations that were, working with small scale businesses, weaving, doing really specialized skills in certain kinds of embroidery that were very specific to that region in India while I was traveling for work. And when I moved here to the US and started studying, it was so different for me. It was also new. It was this gush of Western influence. And I really enjoyed it because Parsons was such a diverse school, and there were kids from all over the world. And it was interesting to see what everyone's take on fashion was, and how everyone dressed up. But at the same time, it was difficult for me to kind of push those boundaries. I was just so new to the place, getting to know everyone, getting to understand, even in terms of education, submitting projects, getting used to working faster, having deadlines and things like that. So it was all very new to me. And while I was learning all of that in 2008, the Syrian refugee crisis was all over the news. People were talking about resettling families. They were talking about the challenges of, women resettling in the United States. And it kind of spoke to me because I feel, growing up back in India, this is what the women in my family did. In the evenings, they would all get together and that was their time. They would hand embroider and they would spend quality time with each other, talking about what they did during the day, the challenges of being a woman in the house, bringing up a household and things like that. And I just felt that it felt more like a solution to the problem. And I felt connected to them. And I just said to myself, okay, I'm going through this, whole cultural shift in my life, and what I was missing, back home, all the women and my family. And here I was, there were women from all these different countries coming to the United States, facing their own challenges. And it just felt like a solution to me, where I felt, I could be of some help, and I just wanted to dig more. So I started reaching out to different resettlement agencies, local churches, and a lot was going on in my life at that time. I even had my daughter at the time, so everything was moving really slowly. I was graduating Parsons at the time as well, so it was a slow process. It took me years. We moved from New York to Los Angeles, so it was many, many years in the making. But it was something that was constantly on my mind. And when I moved to Los Angeles, I started working with another stylist in the meantime. And on weekends, I would, reach out to different agencies and local churches and, just find out, where these women were, like what they were doing. And a lot of them lived in low income housing. They were single moms, they were members from the LGBTQ community. A lot of women that had left their families and had to move here, or were separated from their families and husbands, and now suddenly they found themselves being, the breadwinners of their families. So I got a small group together, and we, started talking to them, figuring out what their needs were. And yeah, like culturally, like most of them knew how to hand embroider. It was something that they were familiar with. They, just like the women in my house, they grew up doing it, enjoying hand embroidery and weaving and crocheting with the women in their families back home. And we just put a few designs together, and we started showing them around to people, and the people really enjoyed them. And at that moment, I realized we had something going on there.
That's amazing. Yeah, your designs are beautiful, and I've always wondered why specifically you guys chose hand embroidered t-shirts. But it seems like this was something that they were already skilled in.
Yeah. And we didn't want, the challenge was coming to the United States and finding, trying to learn something new that they were not familiar with, whether it was learning the language or learning how to drive, culturally just trying to fit in, and, trying to find a job that they had never heard of or were not familiar with, and they kind of just drifted more towards I wouldn't say loping jobs, but jobs, where that they were not used to doing, like cleaning or dishwashing, and, jobs like that, which a lot of the women they had never, like, I don't know, it was just a challenge for them. So this worked out well, and I think it also gave them the flexibility to work from home, which was a huge part for me, and in conversations that we would have with them, we realized that it was most of the women had little kids that, were still not going to school, they were still at home. So they wanted, and they were looking out for a job that could give them that flexibility to stay at home, not drive. So this worked out well for them.
So how did that work? How did you arrange that? Did you speak to these agencies and arrange something so that they would be able to work that way?
So we work individually with each of the women, understanding what challenges they are going through and very specific to them. We don't work typically like most business models do. We have a few extra steps to the process. But we do figure out the logistics of the pickup and the drop-offs of the t-shirts. There's some agencies that we work with where there may be more women that are still under caseworkers. And then we have a space where they can all come in there. So we go in there once a week. For example, one of the organizations we work with here in Los Angeles, we have a weekly workshop. So every Monday, I go in, the women come in every Monday, and that's where we do the pickup and the drop-offs. We do the quality control. Everything happens during that workshop.
I love that so much.
Yeah.
So tell me where you found the inspiration for the designs that these women are creating.
It was from the women themselves, from their stories. And as we started meeting them, there was this common thread, in all their stories, where growing up, they were just never encouraged to work. They were And a lot of the women, they wanted to do something with their lives, and that's how hand embroidery was something that they leaned towards, anything that was artistic. They would, that's something that they did in their free time, and I know a lot of the women also didn't study after a certain grade, maybe sixth grade, and that was it. Some of them went to university and that was it. And when I spoke to them, like that was the most special time in their lives, growing up and studying and being involved in community and, having those dreams and aspirations as well. But they were just never encouraged to work. So I feel the female artwork, the female form came about, as we were learning these stories about all the women and understanding that there was this underlying suppression that was in everyone. It was like a common thread. So we kind of like used that. And I wanted the artwork to be powerful in a way where, it was hand embroidered, it was the female form, and it meant something. I mean, we could have hand embroidered anything like flowers or lilies and butterflies. Like it could have been anything. But, I just wanted the people to look at the t-shirt, feel something and, have a conversation around it. And I didn't think at the time that it would be a conversation starter, but there were so many people that bought our t-shirts. And our biggest sales are through referrals, because people see the t-shirts, they ask people where they got it from, they want to have a conversation around it. They talk about the artwork on the t-shirt, the hand embroidery aspect of it, and then it just trickles down to like who made it and their story. So I think there's something really wonderful that has formed through the artwork and the story itself. So yeah, I mean, that's what I love about it.
Yeah, I think that's what I love about purpose-based businesses in general is that not only are you buying a product, but you're buying into this mission
Yeah.
and buying into these women's stories and empowering them and helping something greater than yourself. So I can see how that's possible, that people are speaking about what you're doing and spreading the word because it's
Yeah.
such a powerful story.
Yeah. And we've had a lot of people ask us, don't they feel offended when they're embroidering this artwork? And seriously, Jasmine, like never have I heard it from these women, never. Like I've
Yeah.
never had a single woman in our team. They actually look at it and they're like, this is beautiful. It connects with them.
Hmm.
And I, I feel like, there's still so much, shaming in like the female form, and when people see it, and we do so many, you and me, like together, we've done so many live events where we are doing markets together. You get to see people's reactions when they see the products, and some people love it and some people are just not having it, and that's okay. Yeah, it's not for everyone.
Right.
Yeah.
But you've also expanded recently. So I see that
Mm.
you've kind of expanded out of the t-shirts and you're also doing home goods, you're doing children's toys and all these different things, which is really cool because you're expanding your offering to a new customer. So how
Yeah.
did you get the idea for these newer items?
Yeah, I mean, hand embroidery is something, a lot of the women know, but we also started working with women who knew how to crochet, knew how to weave, and know how to knit. So we want to use those skills. They have them, they're excited to make these products and we want to use them. So it was just a very natural transition. It happened very organically. We started making samples. If it was something that turned out well and looked good, and we knew that there was a market for it, we introduced it to the public as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, so I love this beautiful story side of the business, but I want to get into the back end because even when we have these, powerful stories and these missions, running a business is hard, right? And we go into it very optimistic and very just like hopeful about what it can be. But I think sometimes we don't always hear the reality of just how difficult it is and how challenging it can be as well. So I want to know, has this been what you expected? And like, what are some difficult things you face so far running your business?
Yeah, I mean, how do you sustain this, right? And the reason why we are so slow with it, we take it, I feel is because also figuring out the logistics, in terms of, okay, we are helping these women, trying to figure out drop-offs and pickups and trying to get them, meeting with them in specific spaces. But how long can we do this? So that's like the back end of it, which is figuring out all the logistics and the quality control. And the more women that we help, we would be expanding to different cities like New York, if anywhere where these agencies are working with communities of resettling families. So how do we do that? So it's challenging, but I feel like with the small core group of women that we've been working with since the last 3 years, we've come to a point now where, the women have gained enough confidence and experience in traveling to a space so we can, typically like potentially think of, renting a space where everyone can come to work. That would be amazing because, that would be the space where we can work on multiple products at a time. And yeah, like the business side of it is how do we get the products out there? How do we get more eyeballs on the work that we are doing? So we are constantly looking at, collaborations, like trying to do markets, increase our sales. It is challenging. I mean, it's a lot, but I feel that I'm happy with the pace that we are at, and I would rather go slow than, like dive into something that I'm not familiar with, but I'm willing to take like risks, but as a small business, obviously there are more calculated risks. Yeah, but it is a very challenging, to be in. But I feel so passionate about the mission and what we have achieved so far that, we are just taking it one day at a time. Yeah.
Yeah. And that brings me to my next question. What has been something that you have been most proud of that you guys have been able to accomplish in this time?
I think it's the women in our team, just getting them to a point, and the fact that, we started with 2 or 3 women and now we have 6 full-time that are working with us, and we have these collaborations and partnerships with some of the biggest resettling agencies in the world, like the International Rescue Committee, Program for Torture Victims, which is one of the agencies that we work very closely here with in Los Angeles. We've gotten to a point where we have these partnerships with them where if there's a new arrival in the country, like they will pick up the phone and they'll call us, because they understand that we are that company which will provide this platform for, any woman that's looking to start working and being financially independent. So I think that makes me really proud. And if we are tied up with, a couple of the biggest agencies, I think that partnership is extremely valuable for us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And
Yeah.
so, for someone who wants to start a business and wants to partner with refugees, what would be the first step? Like, where would they go first? Do they contact these agencies first? Where do they find them? Like, where would be the starting point?
Yeah, I mean, when I started similarly, like, started online. I just went online and started looking at, the process of how these families were coming into the United States and started contacting resettling agencies, even local churches, they do a fabulous job. They're obviously, really small and they do the best to their capacity, but there are a lot of local churches doing amazing work. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, and so what is coming up next for Neococo? Like, what do you guys have in the works? What are your visions? Like, what do you see happening?
We've got a couple of interesting things happening, but I cannot talk about it just
Aw.
yet. But, they are partnerships with agencies that, we've been working closely with. But yeah, I mean, just expanding our product line and, like making sure that the women in our team, are growing, and are, on the path to being financially independent. Like that's our biggest, mission. We want to make sure that we can, like potentially like hire more women and expand our product line as well. We are going to try and be consistent with what we are doing right now. It's a lot going on, but I like the fact that, I love keeping it small and steady.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's important.
Manageable.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you guys are retail direct to consumer right now, right? Do you do any
Yes.
wholesale?
No, we don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, is that something that you guys are looking into in the future, or do you want to keep it direct to consumer?
I've been thinking about it, and I know we've had this conversation
Mm-hmm.
before, but I want to keep it direct to consumer. The business model that we have, and considering, the fair wages and the fact that it's made here locally in Los Angeles, our profit margins are not that high. So we want to just keep it direct to consumer. We want people to buy directly from us and understand, the breakdown of the product and the value that it is having on the women in our team and on this really small team that we have created. And yeah, we want to keep it that way.
That makes so much sense too, because I feel like with such a powerful story, sometimes when you start wholesaling, that can get lost in translation. So you
Yeah.
can't really manage and tell the story the way that
Yeah.
you'd like to. And so, yeah, that makes sense because you can kind
Yeah.
of, keep the integrity of the brand as you guys control it from,
Yeah.
your own space.
Yeah, I mean, right now the focus is really to just get as many people to our website as much as possible, because we want people to come on our website. We want them to, you know, go through, meet all the women on, everyone's stories are there for people to read. So we want them to go through that. We want them to meet the makers of the products on our website, and I feel it's such a powerful tool that, we have that I think like direct to consumer is the best way for us to go right now.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so I'm curious about what ways you guys do that storytelling. I remember one time at one of the live events that I saw you guys at, you had the makers live at the event, which I thought was so cool,
Yeah.
embroidering right on the spot. So, what are some other ways, and if you want to talk a little bit about that too, that you tell that story?
Yeah. I'm also really trying to tackle with social media. It's, a tool that I feel that we're not really using it to the best of our ability. And I want to like, learn more and get there. But at the same time, you're right. Like when we do these live events, it's such a great way to introduce the makers of the products to people. And the couple of times that we have done that, and then COVID happened. So we've not had these markets for a long time, but it's a great way for them as well, because when they see people buying the products that they've made, it just gives them so much joy and so much pride in the work that they've been doing. Because otherwise, again, like you said before, it just kind of gets lost in translation. They make it and then they don't know where the product's going. So this is a great way for them to like see it and then for people to connect with them, and I've had so many people that would come to our booth and really welcome them. They'd be like welcome, like we are so happy to have you here, and like for them, they feel like they're contributing, like they're being part of, a community, like they feel so accepted. Like it's such a wonderful feeling. It's brought it's there've been a lot of tears at events, when we've done that. It's
I'm
just
like
such a
wanting to cry right now.
yeah, it's such a
It's
wonderful
so
moment and
beautiful.
it gets really emotional, sometimes. And sometimes people just come in there to like really hear their story, and to welcome them and be like, hey, listen, like, we are so happy that you're part of this team and, that you found your place, and really like, thank you for doing this work. So it's really incredible. And I love that about, and that is one of the ways, but, yes, like we are constantly looking for, press. We just got, we were on NBC California Live yesterday, which was incredible.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
amazing.
so that was like a good 3 minute segment. 3 hour, I wish. Yeah, 3 minute segment, which was amazing. So things like that, it's so we are reaching out to people, sometimes people reach out to us. So any kind of outreach, as many eyeballs on the work that we are doing is incredible.
Yes, people need to know about this.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a question for you regarding advice that you have for people who are looking to get in this field, who are looking to get in fashion, and don't say don't get in fashion.
Yeah, don't.
But
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
What advice would you give someone starting today? Because I know things were probably different when you started your brand. Things change all the time. So what would be some advice you would give someone starting a
Yeah.
purpose-driven brand today?
If it's a purpose-driven brand, you really have to be passionate about it. There's so many, you're going to fail and fall so many times, and being able to like pick yourself up and just go with it, learn from your mistakes. But yeah, like really, you have to be passionate about it. It's something that, I think of all the time. I'm like constantly thinking of the women in my team. I'm constantly thinking of like, what products we can create, like, what is it, speaking with them and really understanding like what are the skills. Because a lot of times, the women, they know how to make other products besides just hand embroidery. They know other techniques as well, but a lot of times, like, they don't recognize it themselves. It's like I have to bring the materials to them, show them, and they're like, "Oh, I can do that. It's easy." It's things like that, like really understanding them and being passionate about it, and trying to push like each individual to, beyond what they can do, and be like, hey, like, would you like to try this? Like really being like part of it and being involved and being truly passionate about it. And you are going to fail like so many times, but being able to like get up and be like, no, I just have to keep doing, and look at that fall as, a lesson, a learning lesson, and just move on. It's a
Yes.
long game. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon.
I absolutely agree about just needing to be passionate about it
Yeah.
because, like you said, it is a marathon. A lot of things, there's a
Yeah.
lot of challenges that you're going to face. But if you truly believe in what you're doing, and
Yeah.
I think with you, you have a greater mission even than yourself. You have jobs that you're providing to other people and
Yeah.
to, these women who need it. And so that keeps you going. And I think if you have something that you're passionate about, then you will be relentless in it. It can't be just about making money. I
Yeah.
just
Just for yourself, especially a
advice.
purpose driven
Hmm.
brand. Yeah. You have to
Yeah.
be passionate about the purpose, about the mission. Definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So if someone wanted to get involved in what you're doing in any capacity, where can they find you and how can they get involved?
So our website, neococo.com, our Instagram is neococo_collective. Yeah, these are the two platforms that we typically use, but our website definitely is the best place to reach out to us.
Amazing. We will definitely head over there after this interview. Love what you're doing. Thank you so much for being on. I
Thank you,
like
Jasmine.
I loved hearing your story and I just feel like so much more connected to the brand mission.
I know we've met so many times, but I feel
know.
like this is the longest time that we've spoken. All
I know. Like
right.
why don't I know all this? But yes, thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Thank you, Jasmine. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Make Good Fashion. I hope you found this episode helpful and inspiring as you build your fashion business. Please be sure to subscribe to our podcast, and if you enjoyed this episode, leave a review. Remember that building an impactful fashion business takes time and effort, but it's so worth it. So keep pushing forward And don't forget to make good fashion. Head over to makegoodfashion.com to join the community.